Hey, it's the after show. Thank you so much for supporting me, guys. I owe you everything. Well, in this week's video, mate, we're looking at the stinking 5C, like a really pretty looking phone, which was last year's guts, being sold at full price when like the most cutting edge phone you could get was like an extra $100 on top. So most people just said no. But I really do love this era where it was so simple. You had a home button, you had a headphone jack, the internet was less vicious, and everything was just a little bit more chill. Well, related to this dingus, the iPod Touch, which is dead and buried now, naturally. Yeah, this guy really did peter out. But as you can see, they're of the same blood. The old home button style guy. Oh my, look how thin it is though. Man, I can't believe this channel's been going all these years. Like, when I first started this thing, I really had like 70 videos and that was it. I think including after shows, I'm well past 300s. How much longer can I keep it up? And I remember ordering this because I actually did want a new iPod. There was something funny about it, especially a time when like the iPod Classic had been dead and buried for years. And I never really had anything to do with iPod Touches because I had an iPhone. You know, the iPod Touch was like the balked iPhone so that you can get the app experience, the touchscreen experience. You know, when iPhones first came out, the idea of having a cheaper version of the touchscreen was just the best. And sure enough, by 2020, or wherever it was when I got this, yeah, not many people were buying this. And then ironically, engraving it with the word dingus on it, thinking it was gonna like devalue it, because that's what happens. Any iPod that has inscriptions on it is just devalued. It's usually someone's phone number or like, I love you, foo-foo. But no, I had dingus etched into it. And now there are people out there who etch theirs with dingus as well. In the last push of these being made, people are having dingus scratched on it. I was not kind to this. You can see there's scratch there. You can see a bump there. It's slightly bent somehow, but it is maniacally thin, and I really do like the gold. I believe this is for the antennas, and I always found it incredibly ugly. It's like, you guys couldn't figure out another way to get antennas to speak outside of its metal chassis? You just cut, all right. And any excuse that a modern smartphone can't fit a headphone jack, look at this. It actually eats into the bottom section, right? Like, it can fit. And ironically, with the smartphone plateauing, it's like having a nice DAC and a headphone jack would actually be a feature over the competition, Apple. And I'm actually more mad at the competition for pulling their headphone jacks out because they didn't have to. They didn't have to follow Apple. And after the vicious backlash we gave them, they still decided to do it. I actually hate them more. So I use this heaps and heaps. My favorite thing to do with iPods, the old iPods, is that my old iMac here that you see whenever I do nugget dips and whatever, is that this holds my whole library of music. I've got like 50,000 something songs on this thing, working and studying as a musician for 20 plus something years. And for me, what I like to do is to press shuffle and discover music. Because in iTunes, they've got something that's like, if you rate 5 stars, it'll put it into my top rated. So on my old school iPods, I just have it on shuffle, and if I hear a song that I like, I'd give it 5 stars. And sure enough, when I sync it to my iMac later, it'll update the library, and then that will keep growing and getting bigger. And basically, it's me trying to listen to all the music I've got in there and find all the gems I'm still working on to this very day. And something amazing about this guy was that it would actually talk and sync with my old iMac from 2007, and it could actually update the library in it. Although now it's had extra updates and it doesn't do it anymore, which is a bummer. I held off from updating for such a long time, and then I did, and I regretted it, but it doesn't matter. I prefer the old iPods anyway. It was really fun doing it with a brand new iPod, like officially an Apple iPod. This thing is so thin, and you'd imagine, wouldn't that cack the battery having such a thin thing? And yes, it would. This guy probably has the worst standby time of any device. You leave it like turned on sitting on a table for a couple of days, boom, it's gone. Like even overnight, it's used up some battery. I mean, that's how you make them this thin, I guess. It's actually a good thing that modern phones aren't super thin anymore, because number one, they don't bend in half, and number two, they actually last more than a day. What is even on here? We've got Candy Crush, Among Us, which I've never actually played, so for some reason I've installed it and then never played it. This was something I liked, the fact that it was a super old school format. It was the old school screen, the old school home button, not even Touch ID, like in 2020. That was so funny. I think iPhone XS came out in 2017 or 18, like the whole Face ID thing. So to have such a manky old chassis with technically a quasi up-to-date chip in it, that made me giggle. You're not loading, that's fine. It's a 256 gigabyte flash iPod, like from the factory, a 256 gig Flash iPod, and, you know, getting into FiiO devices. I mean, you want to talk about thickness? Oh, gosh. And now, honestly, it just sits retired. It's done its job. It was great having something with a headphone jack to compare against, you know, in terms of sound quality versus like amplified stuff, and it now sits as a bit of a time capsule. And ironically, quite collectible, because it is the original Dingus Pod. You're meant to be uncollectible. How dare you do this to me? Maybe I'll try and get it onto older versions of iOS so I can get it syncing with my iMac again. So, you know, there's no reason to have this fully updated anymore. You know, it's like a really, really crap old phone. And I guess this video is just a little bit of a duke to say that you bet she's still hanging around, mate. Yep, it lives in luxury on its dock, clack, in my office, where it just never gets used. You watch how quick that battery drains. Oh, well. Well, thanks so much, mate. And, you know, I'll see you around, you dingus.